A full self-driving collision, more Cybertruck hate, instant justice, horrifying road rage, and much more is coming up this week on
Wham Baam, Teslacam. I hope you're satisfied.
This emitter was buying cleaning wipes for the Cybertruck he'd literally just picked up that day, and when he came out of the store, he discovered spit on the bumper cover. He reviewed the Sentry mode footage and couldn't believe his eyes when he saw that it was a store employee who'd hawked a loogie at his pickup truck. Our submitter went to the store manager and showed her his Sentry mode footage. She was very apologetic and told him she'd take care of it. He told us he's satisfied with how the manager handled the situation. This begs the question, why does the Tesla Cybertruck get so much hate? Is it the vehicle itself, assumptions about their owners, or does it have something to do with Elon? Personally, I think it's a combination of jealousy and an inferiority complex, but let us know your theory in the comments. Paul was driving with full self-driving enabled, testing the latest version and collecting footage for his YouTube channel, but he wasn't expecting to capture a wham bam moment.
Jesus Christ. F***ing A.
A Honda driver suddenly stopped to yield to pedestrians. Paul slammed on the brakes and swerved to the left as a collision warning sounded.
Jesus Christ.
At first, Paul didn't think his Tesla had touched the Honda since he hadn't felt or heard an impact, and the visualization on the screen appeared to show a gap between the two vehicles, so he continued. When the Honda driver began following him and honking, he realized they must have made contact, so he pulled over. While FSD can definitely anticipate many things, Paul told us neither he nor FSD expected that the Honda driver would suddenly stop during a right turn the way he had. Paul thinks the Honda driver had been turning too fast to begin with, then had to slam on the brakes when the pedestrian stepped off the sidewalk. Paul made 3 observations. 1. The Honda driver could have safely stopped farther to the right out of the way of traffic. 2. The setting sun made the Honda's brake lights difficult to see. And 3. The high-mounted center stoplight was practically invisible behind a dark window tint. Once they were both pulled over, the two drivers inspected their vehicles for damage. Paul realized he'd been the perpetrator of a reverse Honda bump. Thanks to his paint protection film, there was no damage to the paint of either car. Small smudges were easily wiped off them both. Paul decided to leave the scratch in his PPF rather than paying to get it replaced. According to the law, Paul would be considered responsible for causing this collision. Check out his channel Supercharged Travels to see more FSD videos. Thanks for sharing, Paul. Nathaniel was driving his brand new Model 3 Performance in San Antonio, Texas. He was in the left lane and his exit was coming up on the right. Nathaniel saw a black pickup truck in his way and he knew he couldn't pass in front of it, so instead, he decided to go behind it to reach the exit lane. The pickup driver swerved at Nathaniel and tried to push him off the road. Nathaniel told us the Model 3 reacted before he did and avoided an impact by swerving onto the shoulder. Nathaniel sped up and got in front of the pickup, but this made the driver furious. Nathaniel continued down his exit as planned, but what followed is like something from a horror film. The raging pickup driver followed him down the exit ramp. Nathaniel slowed down for a traffic light up ahead, but the pickup driver did not. The pickup bumped into the Tesla, pushing it forward. Thinking quickly, Nathaniel dove for a parking lot to the right, fearing the pickup would try to crush him into traffic stopped ahead. Nathaniel told us he was prepared to defend himself if the pickup driver followed him into the parking lot, but thankfully, the other driver took off. A Good Samaritan witnessed the whole thing, got the truck's license plate number, and followed Nathaniel into the parking lot. Together, they waited for the police for 2 hours, which seems like a crazy amount of time to wait when someone has already attacked you. His Tesla sustained extensive damage. Nathaniel visited a doctor for a sore neck and back, and he told us he's now filing criminal charges against the pickup driver. Nidhi was driving home from work when he suddenly saw parts flying and a Jeep rolling over in the oncoming lanes. The Teslacam footage reveals a 3-car collision after an SUV driver changed lanes and hit the back end of the Jeep, effectively pit maneuvering it into a 3rd car. Several drivers stopped to render aid, and Nidhi kept going as he needed to pick up his kids from school. Joey was just heading home from work in typical traffic when he noticed a Cybertruck driver tailgating a Camaro very closely. The Camaro driver then brake-checked the Cybertruck. The driver of the Cybertruck avoided obliterating the Camaro by swerving into the left lane. Joey thinks the Camaro driver probably had no idea how tough the Cybertruck is or that it could easily wreck his car in a rear-end collision. D-Mighty Shadow was driving his Model 3 in North Plainfield, New Jersey, when an impatient Dodge driver began tailgating him. His Tesla's navigation directed him down a side street while the Dodge driver continued on the main street, speeding off once D-Mighty Shadow turned. What the Dodge driver didn't know was that D-Mighty Shadow's Tesla had directed him down a shortcut, and not long after, D-Mighty Shadow ended up in front of the Dodge again. Apparently, the Dodge driver was tired of not having toxic exhaust gases sprayed at him, so he decided to make an illegal maneuver at the next traffic light to get around D-Mighty Shadow. But there was something else the Dodge driver didn't know. D-Mighty Shadow was following behind a cop car. The cop spotted the Dodge driver's creative driving and lit up his party lights before serving up a heaping helping of instant justice. Tim was on his way to work when the traffic on Florida's Turnpike was getting backed up as usual. Not everything was as usual that morning, as the driver of a Nissan Rogue was about to find out. The Nissan driver cut the line to merge onto I-95 by crossing a solid line and squeezing in behind Tim. Sadly for her, but thankfully for everyone else, the police were watching for exactly this sort of move. The Rogue driver was immediately pulled over by a cop, and Tim told us he laughed about the instant justice all the way to work. Gigi imported a totaled Model 3 to the country of Georgia after buying it from an auction in the United States. When he discovered a flash drive plugged into the car, he started reviewing the videos, and after some digging, he found out how the Tesla had come to be totaled. We have no background information on the incident, so we'll just let you watch the video for yourself. But it sure looks like the driver had some trouble coloring inside the lines. What we can tell you is that neither autopilot nor FSD were active, as the car would definitely not have been swerving around like that if they were. While we wait for this ride to come to its unfortunate end, we can also tell you that Gigi has since fixed up the car, and according to him, it's now as good as new. Gigi spent $3,000 on parts he sourced online, so in total, he spent $4,100 to get the car running after this happened. What do you think caused this wreck? Post your theory in the comments. This submitter was driving down I-20 and was getting ready to take an exit when a black SUV passed him and an occupant threw something at his Tesla. A passenger of the SUV was literally hanging out of the window. Thankfully, he had a pretty weak throwing arm, and whatever he threw failed to connect with our submitter's Tesla. We reviewed several minutes of footage from before this incident, and the SUV can't be seen in any of it, leading us to wonder if this was an act of unprovoked Tesla hatred. What's really funny is that they did this right next to a cop who sadly didn't see it. Our submitter decided to just keep going. Shelby Pikachu Billionaire, which is apparently this submitter's real name, was approaching a stop sign when, as he describes it, he was cut off by a police car. The cop was actually pulling over the pickup in front of Mr. Billionaire, but he told us nobody stops at stop signs in Hawaii, as "da surf no gon wait." We looked online for Shelby Pikachu Billionaire, and that is really the name of someone who is running for the Senate in Hawaii. That said, we have no idea if our submitter is actually Mr. Billionaire. Megabyte was cruising down a highway in Lebanon, Tennessee, when the strong smell of burning rubber found its way into the cabin. That's when he noticed a semi-truck up ahead having some kind of tire problem, but the trucker wasn't stopping. Eventually, the truck's trailer started throwing sparks and tire debris all over the highway. The spectacular pyrotechnics show finally caught the eye of the trucker, and he pulled over to the shoulder. Now, we're no truckologists, but the rear axle of that trailer doesn't look too good. Maybe a real truckologist can let us know in a comment what exactly caused this fireworks display. This submitter was approaching a traffic light where another driver was waiting for their turn. That driver should have yielded for oncoming traffic, but they didn't. The car they cut off happened to be a cop car, and the driver stopped even before the cop activated his party lights to pull him over. Our submitter says, "It was nice to see DeWitt's finest in action, and we love to see the instant justice." This submitter was driving with FSD engaged when he noticed something fly through the air and land in his path. There was no time to avoid it, and our submitter heard a thud as the object went under the car. Thankfully, it went between the wheels. Our submitter checked for damage at the next exit, but didn't see anything obvious. This had happened 5 minutes into a 1-week-long trip. He didn't feel comfortable continuing the trip without a thorough inspection, but he also didn't have time for one that day, so he went straight home and chose another vehicle to take on the trip. When he got home several days and 250 miles later, he taped his phone to a yardstick and used it to inspect his Tesla's undercarriage. It looks like the object punched a 1-inch wide hole in one of his inner fender liners. He plans to fix it himself with some epoxy, and he's just glad there was no damage to the battery, which was his main concern. The Friday before Father's Day, Joel was headed home to New Jersey with his children when they saw a van on their right begin to flip. Joel took the opportunity to show his kids that stopping to help someone is the right thing to do in this situation, and it may even save someone's life. After waiting for traffic to clear, he crossed the highway to assist the van's occupants and help them safely exit the vehicle. He provided first aid while also instructing other bystanders how they could be helpful. New Jersey State Police troopers arrived, and when they determined that it was Joel's Tesla parked on the other side of the road, they told him he needed to leave immediately. The other bystanders tried telling the troopers about Joel's helpful actions, but they weren't interested in hearing about it. He also offered them his Teslacam footage, but he told us they just wanted him to go away. Well, we can see you did the right thing, Joel, and your kids can too. Thanks for being awesome. This submitter was visiting Montgomery, Alabama with his wife and was on his way to a supercharger when his pleasant vacation came to an abrupt halt. The driver of the Volkswagen Tiguan ahead of them drove through a traffic light before getting T-boned by a Buick Enclave. Our submitter immediately stopped to render aid to both parties, and 4 sheriff's deputies who'd happened to be following behind him did as well. Miraculously, both parties walked away from the collision unharmed, and both the drivers and the sheriff's deputies were very thankful our submitter's Teslacam had recorded everything. In next week's episode, we'll be featuring a video of a driver who pays the price after stopping in the middle of the highway. Hit the subscribe button to get notified, and we'll see you then.
Wham Bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.